Okay, here we are in Excel. We can start a blank workbook. In Excel, we have a spreadsheet with different cells. We have columns labeled by the letters, and we have our rows labeled by the numbers. You can zoom in by pinching into those so we can just see our text a little bit better. We're going to take a look at an example spreadsheet for calculating the center of gravity. So in cell A1, I am going to type in the title of this component, which will actually be a component. In cell B2, I'm going to use the arrow key on the keyboard. In cell B2, I am going to type in the weight of each component. In cell C1, I am going to type in the arm or distance from the firewall. In cell D, we will be calculating the moment. Now, even though we typed in component, some of our letters were cut off. We can go in between our columns or rows and double click, and it will automatically adjust the width. All right, our components for the airplane, we're just going to do empty weight, We're going to include people, that will be our pilot and passengers. We are going to include, let's do fuel. And that's all that we will do our example with. When we calculate our center of gravity, we need to know what is the empty weight. So let's say my empty weight for a small aircraft is 1,500 pounds. Let's say the distance for this is 46 inches. The moment needs to be calculated by multiplying the weight times the arm for each of those components. In Excel, you can start a formula by typing in equals. At this point, we can create a formula, a mathematical formula that will be carried out for us. So I could type in equals 1,500 times 46, and it will give me the moment. However, there's an even better way to do it, because if I realize that I mistyped the distance, instead of 46, it was supposed to be 42, I want that moment to automatically adjust. To do that, we need to reference where our numbers live. So we're going to delete what we currently had in our moment, and we're going to type the formula in a new way. Again, you start a formula by saying equals. Now you have the ability to type in your formula. Instead of typing in 1,500, we're going to tap on the cell that has the weight for our empty weight. That is cell B2. Then we're going to type in times and tap the cell that has our arm, C2. The moment you hit enter, your moment is self-calculated. By doing so, if I change the arm value and I put it back to 46, the moment is automatically being adjusted. All right, let's type in some values for people. We have 400 pound worth of passengers and pilot, and the distance for them is 52 inches. For fuel, we have 150 pounds, and the distance for that fuel is 38. Now, the moment for people is again calculated as 400 times 52. One option is we can type in equals, and we can tap on each cell so we can get them to multiply by each other. B3 times C3. But if my table had a lot more components, that would get tedious to do each time. So instead, I'm going to cancel this, and I'll show you a pretty cool trick. Select the cell D2. This is where we already have a working formula. This formula should be repeated for every row below. With this selection, if you put your finger underneath this little arrow on the bottom, you can click and drag it down to the cells where you want the formula to be applied. And when you release, it looks like it is repeating this formula. Now let's verify that it is working correctly. We're going to select just D3. That should be the multiplication of B3 times C3. And sure enough, even though what is displayed in the spreadsheet is 20,800, up at the top, we can see the formula that is used is actually B3 times C3. Same thing is true for D4. The formula is B4 times C4. Now, this table should stand out in comparison to everything else that we have on here. So I am going to select A1 and I will kind of click and drag on where the table is. Whoops. I wanted to select the actual part where our table information is. So just with my finger, not the mouse pad, I clicked on the component and then dragged out to the side. This is where our table is living. I would like for this to stand out from the remainder of the spreadsheet, so I want to turn on some frames. Up here at the home button, we can change the font, we can change the borders. Here's the button for borders. You can select all borders. You can do all borders and you can do thick outside borders to make that stand out even more. Okay, now we have our table. If I want to select all the titles, I can grab my first column and I can fill in the color for it so that it is a little bit easier for us to read our information. And same thing for our first row, we can adjust the color. Whoops, not the color of the text, but instead the fill color. Okay. Now remember that our actual center of gravity for the aircraft is calculated as the total moment divided by the total weight. So in cell B5, we need to add up all of these weights. To start a formula, you type in equals. We can type in B2 plus B3 plus B4, and when we hit enter, that is being added up by itself. We can do the same for a moment. This time though, I want to use the formula for sum. So I'm going to say equals sum and I have selected all of the cells D2 to D4 to be added up together. And here it is, we have our total moment. The coolest part in this whole feature is the fact that when you change any of your values, let's say our people, all of a sudden, someone is not coming with us, we have a total of 240 pounds. All this is being self-calculated. The values are updating by themselves. I want you to try and come up with a formula for the center of gravity. That would be in cell C5. Remember to start the formula by typing in equals, and then you need to select where your total moment is divided by your total weight. You will use this information to make a new calculator. When you take a look at the bottom of your screen, you have multiple sheets within this spreadsheet, within this document. This first one was our center of gravity sample. Center of gravity. That was a simple sample calculator. It is not necessarily required. However, to make a new calculator, instead of opening a brand new document, we are going to add a new sheet on the bottom. I'm going to click on the plus, and now I have a second spreadsheet that I could use. You can zoom in, rename this as your atmospheric conditions. This calculator should clearly show where does the input go, and it should clearly identify what is the output. Remember, for your atmospheric conditions, you need to be able to calculate what is the temperature, what is the air pressure, and what is the air density. For each, there should be the appropriate units that are included. Let me know if you have any additional questions.